at for your impact quantification. Where do you want to start your impact quantification is really what you're going to focus on. And that will come by defining scope and boundary of your impact assessments. So what do we mean by boundary? So if you can see this diagram, we start from raw material sourcing, right? That's called as cradle, like that's the start of your process, right? And then you move on to till your production process is the gate. So when we talk about gate to gate, so I won't get into the technicalities of it, but basically the steps in which your startup is, you can define these various steps like procurement, that's the cradle, production, that's the gate, use phase is where you're actually going to use, the customers are going to use your product or service. Then it's the end of life cycle, so that's the grave. So whether you recycle your products or you're using it for just it's going to the landfill, etc. So what exactly are these boundaries that you want to define? Do you want to look at impact only in your production process, or do you want to look at impact only in the use phase where the customers are using, or only in the disposal, where exactly, or do you want to actually calculate it in all the phases? So that's what you really need to define, because each of these are quite extensive phases. And how can you define that? You can define that where you think is your maximum innovation. So so maximum at least 80-90% of your will be your innovation and the positive impact is targeted in the use phase when the customer is using it, versus something inefficient that they have been using currently. So it will be in the use phase, but many of you all will also have a significant positive impacts in the production phase or in the disposal of your product or service as well. So if it's a clean product, then biodegradable product, then that otherwise if it was a plastic, you would generally it would have a lot of end of life cycle impacts. But if it is a biodegradable one, that it's not going to have these impacts, right? So you can look at those particular phases and try to, so this is a way to kind of limit your impact quantification efforts to make them more manageable. So the better you define your boundary, the better impact quantification you can do and the data you can collect, etc. Okay. Now when you define these boundaries, within those boundaries you can define scope. So for example, if you choose a use phase boundary, then in the use phase you might have various positive impacts. It can be in the form of GHG emissions, it can be in the form of curbing air pollution, it can be in form of reducing the water usage, etc. But what you can really do analysis of which is that most significant impact that you want to calculate. So if you feel that no, I want to concentrate only on air pollution and I don't want to go into the whole GHG because those are less, I'm not having that much of a positive impact. So that's really for you to decide what you want to showcase, and it will be good, so that will narrow down your scope even more, right? So that's from the boundary you can define the scope which you want to concentrate on. Now even one of these, so we'll come to what kind of impacts you can have and different KPIs, but even if you take an example of GHG emissions, there can be multiple GHG gases like CO2, methane, but if you just say that suppose your startup is on food wastage, so you can say that methane is the one that I really want to focus on because that's the most material for me, and I'm just going to avoid all other types of impact that my startup is having. And that's up to you, and that will really define the scope and narrow. So all of this is done so that you can collect data to that, focusing on that one impact, so it's more manageable, and plus it's less of an effort and less cost, and cost effective basically to show these kind of impacts. Otherwise then you have to go through, if you have to calculate all of them, then you have to go through a proper consultant, and it's a long process. So this is just to make things easier for early stage startups. Okay. Any questions, feel free to just come in the middle and ask me. Great. Now I would really suggest to not look at the diagram on the left hand side, but what this really shows is that you should look at your startup in more details. So think about each and every process that is going to occur in your startup right from the beginning. So right from the cradle to grave, as we saw in the last slide. So cradle to gate to grave. Think about each and every process and what kind of impact do you think, and if you think that there's a significant impact that you're creating through one of the process, that is where you need to focus. So this is what is called as a life cycle thinking. So think about the entire life cycle. That's what this really depicts, right? As much as detail as possible at this stage. And then you can focus on these boundaries and scope. Okay. Now, for okay, but I'll come to that later. But go ahead. Okay. So as I said before, it's not necessary that your impact should be only on the natural capital side, which is the environmental side of things, but it can also be a significant social impact. It can be a human capital impact, which means that you're increasing capabilities of human beings through education, health, etc. So it can be any, and think on those lines as well, apart from the environmental ones. Also, I do agree that quantification is not really feasible in all the cases. If you feel it's too difficult, for example, biodiversity. So if you're having an impact on biodiversity or ecosystem services, it's not as easy to quantify these things. So if you feel it's not so easy, you can always mention it in qualitative terms, and that's all right. Also, it's not as straightforward that the innovation that you're having and the impact that you're creating, how much of it can be attributed to you yourself. So what about the other parameters? There might be policy changes, etc. So it may not be as straightforward as it's coming only from you. But at these early stages, maybe we can try to ignore these aspects as much as possible. So basically, how do you really, so what is materiality? Materiality in terms of impact, and I'm just introducing these particular terms because if you go to read any of literature to help you do the impact quantifications, you're going to come across these terms. So that's why I'm just introducing some few terms. Materiality is what aspects are the most important. So choosing the scope and boundary which has significant impacts, which shows the highest change. The indicator which shows the highest change from the business as usual scenario is the one that you should opt for. So for example, if you have large methane emission reductions, you should just go for methane, and along with that, if you have air pollution, water, then just ignore them because you just go for one particular parameter. And yeah. So all of this being said, startups are very different, and we've spoken about this enough in the bootcamp, so I'm going to go through these quickly. But these may not be the most important things for you right now. This may not be on your priority list. Typically it's cash right now that you need to get in. So sales must be in your mind. Just getting your product out there and testing it and finalizing your prototype might be first. Comes first on your priority list. You may not even have the supply chain in place. So it may be difficult to visualize and get data for quantification as well, surely. And data is a big problem when it comes to quantification. You may not have the resources enough to do it. You may not understand it that much, and you cannot hire anybody to do it, right? So all of these problems are there with startups, definitely. But that's why we've been talking about reducing the scope boundary, trying to come to one parameter, right? And because of all of this, we think that you should use something called as a handprint methodology. But essentially, what it really means is that just focus on one phase, and that generally is the use phase. So forget the supply chain as of now because it's too hard to get data. It may not be in place. Just think of it from a consumer point of view. So whenever your consumer uses this for the purpose that you had created this innovation, when it is being used, what is the general impact that it has? What is the positive impact? And that will help you much more. Okay. So how do we go about it? Defining a counterfactual, which is a business as usual scenario, right? What is happening in the market currently? Um, what is the scope and boundary? We've already spoken about this, but make sure that you think about it from an accuracy point of view. Whether you do have the data for it, whether what you're claiming is true or not. All of these aspects, a little bit deeper thinking is required. When you do data collection, there is something called as a functional unit, which you should keep in mind. That is, keep one particular unit for both business as usual scenario that you're taking and your innovation. So for example, if you're talking about e-bikes, then maybe you talk of impact in terms of 100 travel, so per 100 km becomes that functional unit. Now, whenever you compare it with, say, a normal petrol bike, you also take that analysis as per 100 km. So make sure that you have this in place. It can be per liter production, as in the next example, or it can be time wise. So it depends on your startup, but it can be per hour, it can be per year, it can be per household, if it's an average, so anything that you define, but make sure that it's in one unit, functional unit. All of this third party assurance to provide credibility, etc. When you grow to a particular size, then these things become extremely important, because if you're going to publish it in your report, or you're going to go for funding based on that, etc., you need some kind of verification to show that your impact calculations have been validated by a third party. So the key performance indicators that generally you should look at, and you can look at just one of these, are greenhouse gas emissions, air pollution, water use, land use and biodiversity, and pollutants to both land and water. And we'll come to each and every one of them in detail in the next slides. The social KPIs that you can look at, for example, are the number of people affected, number of jobs created, which is also one of the criteria for Climate Launchpad as well. Number of jobs created, health indicators. If you're, suppose you're reducing pesticides and you do have some health indicators, it's good to think about it. If you're increasing income for a particular community, if you're saving time, so if you have there was this startup which was had this software which aimed at reducing traffic jams, so aimed at reducing the fuel use as well, but then it's also a lot of time saved for the people. So think of these examples in terms of social KPIs as well. Okay, so GHG emissions. Yeah, Rakesh, go ahead. Raised your hand. You have a question?
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Joy. See, I had a couple of questions. If you come down to the first slide, where you showed, where you define the boundaries, right? So probably my query is, probably like if we are working on an e-mobility solution, when we are preparing the components, there would be emissions which would be a different impact, and the outcome, the product, when it comes to a user, so it will bring in a positive impact. So correct, like there is a balance between you have an emissions when you are doing a component preparation,
yeah,
and the outcome of it may result in a positive. So end of the day, like we need to balance that, right? I think that's where the whole intent is.
Yes.
Should we do that, or should we only just show the outcome of it as a user?
See, yeah, that's a very good question, and I mean, see, that's where you have to decide how you're going to show. So whatever the assumption, so if you're going to show it only on the basis of a use phase, right, where the user is using it, and that's really your invention, and you where your focus should be on. So when they're using it, that's the boundary that you're choosing, and that's a positive impact. Now, if you look at the production phase, and when you look at so you're saying what is your thing? E-mobility.
Yeah. So we are into e-mobility.
Yeah, e-mobility. Now when you look at the component creation in the production phase, but then even for the business as usual, you will have to take into account their production process as well, because even they are going to have some negative impact while production.
Correct.
So it really depends on what you want to focus on. So you might find that maybe your production process is much efficient than what is there, or maybe not so efficient also. I'm not saying that, but then you have to look at both the phases for both the bound or the counterfactual and your innovation. So that's why at these early stages, maybe it's best to concentrate on the use phase, because it is definitely positive. And then let's I mean, to show to any of the investors or your customers, you need to highlight, I mean, let's get a little practical. We need to highlight the positive impact, because we are a impact startup, right?
Correct.
If you have that as a USP, it's better to show it as a positive impact. And then you can put forth this assumption clearly that this is only in the use phase. I'm not considered, and that's fair enough.
Understood. Yeah, see, Joy, we did go through the handout which was shared as a pre-read to us, or there's the EIB, the European Investment Bank stuff.
Yeah.
I think there was, okay, there is, I think it's this whole thing is impact calculation is going to be a big exercise altogether, because knowing the whole framework and doing this.
Yeah.
Now, the question is, see, now you may put up one more thing called as an handprint methodology, right? So wherein, again, that's another method of calculating impact. Now, where do you fit this EIB procedure in this handprint methodology?
So the document that I shared was generic, because I knew that a lot of people have interest in GHG emissions, and it was quite extensive. But
Correct.
if you do want to calculate it through that extensive methodology, I mean, you'll have to calculate it through that at some point or the other, depending on your stage of your startup, right? When you're at a particular stage, you'll have to show your impact. But this handprint is just a way of saying that it just show a positive impact in the use phase. That's the only thing. So it's reducing the scope and the boundary to only the use phase, and not considering any other phases, because it's easier to calculate for early stage startups. That's about it. Otherwise, the methodologies remain the same. And that being said, there is no one specific methodology that is being followed anywhere.
Understood. And who will vet this, Ju? Like, see, for example, once we prepare this and we prepare all this content, so would you help us in vetting the numbers, or how does we take this exercise?
I mean, I'll be happy to do it. So you can mail me, and I'll be happy to look at it for sure. But that being said, in CLP, since it is, as we've been saying, that this competition is more of a business accelerator. So as long as you're having a positive impact, that's all right for the competition. And at least they just see broad numbers. So even if you don't have these very, very specific calculations, that's okay. But the idea is to get you started at least doing that.
Understood.
And then you can build up on that.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks. All right. So whoever's raising hand, just you can unmute and ask.
Yeah, hi Juhi, Vishwanathan here from Green Jams.
Hi. Yes.
My question was how important is it to have legitimacy in the testing or the numbers that you're showing? For example, does it make a difference if we do the impact calculation on our own, or does a third party coming and verifying it for us make a big difference at this stage of our startup?
So at this stage, third party verification is not really that important, because where are you going to use these emissions? It's just to show in, as your business pitch deck. And the idea in any business pitch deck when you show it is to identify whether there is a positive impact or not, or an approximate scale of impact. Basically, that's what we're trying to see. So even if you don't verify it, but you have like the right sources from which you've done, your framework seems to be solid, and you can defend your calculations. That we're all right with that. But when you grow, then of course in any impact assessment you need a third party verification. If you're going to publish it as a report, or use it to apply for various things and all that. So,
okay, thank you so much for that. Yeah.
Anyone else? Two people who raised their hands. I guess no. All right. Great. Moving on, when we come to GHG emissions, so I won't go into why they're important, all that we already know it in terms of climate change. But I'll introduce this concept of global warming potential, right? So when we look at different greenhouse gases, with carbon dioxide being one, right? The other gases are compared to how much more do they warm the atmosphere as compared to carbon dioxide. So for example, methane warms 28 times more. So the global warming potential of methane is 28, right? And all of these are given given in the IPCC reports, and we take global warming potentials from there. So you can look at a list online and you can get these global warming potentials, but how you can calculate your greenhouse gas emissions are in terms of CO2 equivalent. So if you have so if you have, say, methane, I'm just going to stick to methane. So if you have methane, say 3 kgs of methane, then 3 into 28, that much of CO2 equivalent is your positive impact reduction. All right. I mean, that's how much of methane you're reducing. So think of it. So whenever you multiply something with a global warming potential, that becomes a CO2 equivalent. So always show your impact in terms of CO2 equivalent. That's the point. When you come to a GHG impact. I hope that's clear. Air pollution, these are the kind of air pollutants that you can look at from your startup. Particulate matter, if you're reducing or capturing PM10, PM2.5, oxides of sulfur, oxides of nitrogen, SOx, NOx, we call it, ozone, carbon monoxide. And you can show your impact in terms of reduction of any of these. So this can be a direct KPI. So I reduce PM10 by so and so, or I reduce SOx by so and so percentage, and that's a perfectly acceptable impact calculation. Yes, Shan, raised your hand.
Yeah. What about reducing like VOCs, like synthetic VOCs for indoor air quality as well?
Yeah. Definitely. That's indoor. You're right. That's an indoor air quality, and you can show that as well. Although, generally an indoor air quality does not feature in any traditional impact assessment, so to speak. So when you see any report, generally indoor air quality is not included. But if that's your focus, then you can definitely show it. That's all right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So if you see any of these big company reports, etc., generally indoor air quality, I mean, just 1 or 2 years it's been that people have started reporting it, because there were so many reports which came out of about health related to indoor air quality. So yeah. Water use. So KPI, if you're reducing the amount of water that you use, you can directly show that as amount, so many liters of water reduced, and that's a good enough KPI. That being said, water and energy, there is a very close nexus. So if you're reducing water usage, you can also reduce, you generally also reduce the amount of energy used, because energy is required for pumping, distribution, etc. So you can show both of these impacts and they become equally material. So generally for startups who are focusing on this, you can show both your impacts. Land use and biodiversity. Land use becomes important for a lot of startups, actually. If you're reducing land degradation, if your innovation is focused on just reducing the usage of land, which would be otherwise required in a, I know of some of the innovations here which are reducing the amount of land required for even waste, storing of waste and all that. So you can show it directly as so much meter square of land, less used. and actually land is becoming such a scarce resource that this is a great impact to show. Okay. And you know, loss of soil fertility and all that. So land and then biodiversity becomes a very important aspect in that as well. So you can, if you're showing biodiversity, you can convert it to, you know, it's one of the sinks. Forests become one of the carbon sinks. So you can convert it into how much of carbon storage takes place, and through your innovation, how much are you reducing that kind of impact as well. The other, I mean, loss of genetic biodiversity and all that is very difficult to calculate, but you can always show it as qualitative impact if you are unable to calculate it. Pollutants to land and water, as I said before, these the kind of startups which are focusing on less use of pesticides, less chemicals used in solutions like detergents, soaps, and all that. Yeah, less use of heavy metals. So all of these will reduce the land pollutants, and there's a very strong nexus between the land and water pollution, because you know, as you know, the pollutants get washed away to water. So generally, if you're looking at land, you can also look at water. Even and this also applies to if you're reducing landfill pollution. A lot of pollutants are leached to the soil and they are washed away as well. So some of these impacts are related to if your startup is in the waste sector as well. And key water pollutants, you can show it in terms of BOD and COD if you know these terms, and if your startup is that specific, you can show it. But yeah, you can, I mean, if there's specific startup and you have specific questions, you can always email me, because it's not possible to give each and every example in this webinar, but I'm going to go through some of the examples in the next slides, which I think will make this more clearer. If you, I mean, are you putting anything on chat? I can't see the chat while sharing my screen, so if you could just speak up, that will be good. Waste, if you're in the waste sector, yeah, Shalini, go ahead. Shalini, you have a question?
Yeah, hi Jimmy.
Hi.
I was looking for some ESG standards. If we can do this impact assessment in some standardized manner.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I'm looking for some ESG standards.
Yeah.
To have some kind of a standard format for doing the
Oh, yeah. So I mean, there are variety standards. So I mean, if you're looking at, I mean, ESG standard is something that a lot of big companies use to measure impact versus one another, and that too, every company has a different methodology to do that. So if you look at MSCI, they do it in a different methodology versus S&P or a Trucost, which does it in a different methodology. So there is no fixed methodology for this. And if you're looking at a reporting standards, then, you know, GRI, IR, there are various reporting standards, and they are all available online. So you can look at what kind of questions they ask to report their report particular impact, but the impact quantification has to be done on your own only. So there is no, there are some tools online that you can use for this. If you want a paid version, there's a great tool called as Fame tool, which is free for some and paid for some. Okay. There's an impact forecast tool and all that, but I mean, yeah, it's there is no, so it's not that one worldwide one methodology is accepted. There are various methodologies, but you can report it in particular standards, and you can look at GRI and you can look at IR standards. These are the most widely used, and you find these.
Yeah, reporting standards are good. Yeah, we are already knowing that, but methodologies we are pretty confused, because it is always like everybody's using their methodology, so it is always kind of very confusing.
Yeah, it is confusing only. So that I completely agree. There is no one methodology, but I mean, maybe when I come to my examples becomes clearer. Let's see, and
Yeah.
then we can discuss later. And at these, I mean, at early stages, I would also suggest that look at a lot of secondary research. So generally, you will find these numbers somewhere or the other that you can adapt to your, method, rather than creating your own methodology and going and doing your own calculations. If there are some reports available, that also gives credibility to your calculations as well, and that's better to use than forming your own methodologies.
Sure, I'll do that. Yeah. Thanks, too.
Okay, so if you're in the waste sector, then it is more likely that you have impacts through impacts for a lot of these indicators. So it's waste is connected to GHG emission also. There'll be air pollution emissions also that you're reducing, maybe water, land pollution, land use, biodiversity. So there'll be a varied sort of impact. So really, what your innovation is, you have to decide on one of these and focus on this. So I do realize that for whoever is in waste management and some things like upcycling, etc., it becomes more difficult to do these sort of quantifications because you don't know what to choose. But just try to choose which has the highest rate of change, or that indicator shows a greater change. Yeah. Just unmute, and 2-3 people have raised their hands.
To unmute.
Yeah.
Yeah, during this, so for purposes of Climate Launchpad,
Yeah.
do we have to select one KPI only, or can we select like a couple and report?
Yeah. So for CLP, we do recommend that you choose only one, which is the most important, and you want to highlight. Only if you feel that the second one is equally important as compared to the first and has an equal positive impact, then you're free to choose two, but don't go beyond two, honestly.
This being Climate Launchpad, by default, is everybody expected to choose carbon dioxide emissions as the KPI, or can we also say waste, or that could be our KPI?
Any of those KPIs that I showed earlier, you can choose any of those, the environmental KPIs. Till 2 years back, it was only carbon, and then we got to know that the scale of innovation is too broad to keep it limited to carbon. So now it's you can choose any of these environmental KPIs.
And last quick question along these lines: so the social impact KPIs, that's a separate set, right? That doesn't count in these two.
No, it doesn't count in these two. So we have a separate climate impact slide. But if you do want to talk about your social impact, you can do so. One as maybe if it is a very significant social impact, which Anju I know is in your case, you can always mention it in one or two qualitative terms, right? Or you can weave it in your story. So when you're talking about your inspiration, or in their title slide or your founder's dream, you can always mention these. So that's a great way to get it.
Great. Thank you, Jyoti.
Anyone else? Okay. Yeah. Just unmute and ask whoever's raising your hand. I can't see the name.
Hello, Mridul this side.
Hi. Yes, Nitin.
You have shown key performance indicators for waste like GHG emission, air emission, and for other sectors as well. But when we talk about numbers, like they are not in numbers, but I'm talking about numbers like waste collection, or how much waste we are collecting, how much waste we are segregating, and how much waste we are recycling, and how much energy we are producing if we are converting that waste into energy. So that will be a key performance indicator or not? But will it be considered or not in climate launchpad?
Yeah, of course, it will be considered. It's just that, kgs of waste definitely you can show as your key performance indicator, but then if you can also quantify it in terms of what kind of so since you're calculating it and it's not going to the landfill, and there are ways to calculate directly, you know, how much GHG emissions are you reducing through that, you know, because you're managing the waste better. You can show those indicators, and that's perfectly valid. If you're
Yeah,
converting it into energy, then you can directly show.
no, it's an example.
Energy.
Like it's an example if we talk about the numbers, and along with that, we can also show that land pollution, how much land pollution we are blocking with our startup. So that can be a point, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay, great. So whenever you're talking about pollutants, it's not generic in terms of any land pollutants, but think of a particular pollutant. If you can talk in terms of a particular pollutant and the amount of that particular pollutant reduced, that will be better. And this will be easily you can easily find these pollutants in any of the research papers if you read something. Did you raise your hand again, Vidil? Okay, great. Okay, so let me take yeah. Who raised hand? You can just unmute and go.
I raise my hand.
Yeah.
So if I like, let's say I say water pollution is my impact because it's a laundry detergent.
Right.
Do I pick just one chemical or do I pick all the chemicals?
No, pick a significant chemical or two chemicals. I would suggest. So there'll be two significant chemicals that you're reducing, and you can choose them. Joel, can you mute, please? Yeah, go ahead, Shan.
Okay, so so if I was to pick only two impacts, would I pick water pollution as one, and then let's say I say my plastic because it's plastic free, or would I pick and pick landfill use as a as a waste as the second one, or two chemicals as two separate ones?
I mean, that's really up to you to decide. Seeing what kind of indicator of change do you have. So what is more positive that you want to show. So if you want to show that water pollution is where you're focusing your impact, and you really want everybody to remember you as a startup which has the maximum impact on water pollution, then you can show. And another thing in water pollution is also BOD and COD levels. So that really aggregates many pollutants together. So you can look at those, and that's a easier way to measure water pollution.
Okay, thank you.
Rana, you have a question? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, I have a doubt. Like, there will be both negative and positive impacts in the various stages of manufacturing. So, should we only put up the positive impact or the negative impact as well?
See, that's what I spoke about earlier. If you do have a negative impact in your manufacturing and you know about it, definitely you can put. But then the counterfactual that you're comparing it with, you have to see their negative impact through their manufacturing as well. So if you know both, then only you can calculate a net benefit, right? This is not you cannot show a net benefit. So idea over here is to show that you're a positive impact startup, right? So unless you show a net benefit, that has to be compared to something. Otherwise, how can you show standalone impact?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I'm just going to go through a few examples and just chosen energy example, and the next one is a water and water pollution example, just to have a variety and to kind of represent a lot of startups here. Hopefully you find this interesting. So this was a startup 1 or 2 years back in CLP who was generating a power generation solar window. So they had a window which was coated by some material and generated solar power. And that was basically their product. And now this analysis is taking into account that we are only considering the use phase, right, of the startup and the positive impact. So the boundary that we are looking at is direct operations during the use phase of the product after commissioning. And the business as usual that we are looking at, the counterfactual, is the production of electricity through a coal-fired power plant. And it's not necessary that you take a coal-fired power plant, you can take a normal grid also. But here, just for the purposes of this, I've taken a coal-fired power plant, right? Yeah, Anju. Maybe I finish this example and take questions, just not to take the flow. Okay. So this is a coal-fired power plant that I've taken as a baseline. And now, when we look at the scope, the greenhouse gas emissions, we're only taking the CO2 emissions, the GHG emissions, right? There is an impact of the water usage as well, and there is an air pollution impact as well. So these are the three impacts that we look at in the scope. Apart from this, if you look at a business as usual scenario, there is also waste generation in terms of flash. There's pollutant to land and water as well, but these are not material, as we discussed before, and so we are not going to take them into the scope, right? That's so we're just going to keep our scopes to the three: CO2 emissions, water, and air pollution, right? Now we spoke about functional unit. If you remember, what is that unit that we're going to consider is 1 megawatt hour of electricity produced at the house, right? And so on the right hand side, now you see the importance of functional unit. If we look at 1 megawatt hour of electricity received at the house, when we look at a production of electricity through a coal-fired power plant, we also have to take into account the transmission and distribution losses from the power plant to the grid to the home. Okay? So of course your calculations would drastically change if you don't take into account this functional unit at the house. If you just take 1 megawatt hour of electricity produced. So now these are the kind of data collection that you need to do, right? So when we look at GHG emissions, you're going to assume that since it's solar energy, there are no GHG emissions, at least at the use phase, right? Air emissions, no emissions to the air. Water, they do require some water, so 1 megawatt hour of water. We've done some, and I won't go into the details of calculation. If you're interested, we circulate this PPT and you can look into it. So let's say 170 liters. Okay. Now in the business as usual scenario, if you see the total coal consumption to produce 1 megawatt hour of energy is 0.74 ton, right? And the CO2 emissions per megawatt hour is 1.19 ton, and this is directly taken from already published data, right? And as far as possible, try to do that. Try to use the secondary sources. Okay? So this is taken from the CEA, the Central Electricity Authority data. Now, when we since we are looking at transmission and distribution losses, that comes to around 22%. So the total emission reduction we have taken as considering these losses. So the total CO2 emission, and this is known as the emission factor. So how much is the emission factor? Is 1.19 tons. Okay? That's the emission factor if you come across this term. So total CO2 emissions per 1 megawatt hour of electricity is 1.46 tons of CO2. Okay? Great. Now air pollution, this data is also taken directly for how much of air pollution will take place for 0.74 tons of coal. Right? This was a number that we got over here, total coal consumption, 0.74 tons. So oxides of nitrogen, oxides of sulfur, particulate matter, we got these numbers, and the water usage also we got 4.9 meter cube, and all of this is from secondary published sources. So now we just compare the innovation that we have in the use phase to the baseline, and the net benefit that we get is GHG emissions 1.46 tons. Air pollution, since it's zero on the left hand side, but in every case it might not be zero. So you might have some negative emissions as well, and you should consider them basically, and then subtract from the baseline, right? And water use 170, and water use on the other side is 4900 liters, and then 4900 liters minus 170 is your net benefit, basically. And this is what essentially you show on your bar graph in CLP. Now definitely over here, if you take into account not the use phase but the entire supply chain, then you might not have these kind of impacts, because there will be other impacts, like how you're going to dispose of that solar window, how much of emission occurs in the upstream, that means in the production process. All of these things will come into consideration, but then again, on the other side, for the thermal power plant, if you go into building of the thermal power plant, the whole of the infrastructure of distribution, what happens at the end of life, and all of those concerns, then you have to do an entire life cycle analysis of both the counterfactual and your innovation, right? Yeah. So hope that's clear. Kate, any questions? Somebody did raise their hand. If you do have, before I move on to the next example, please feel free to ask. Yeah, Saurabh, go ahead. Saurabh, you there?
Yes. Hello.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to like ask one question. Like, as you shown the calculation here in 3-4 slides, right? How you calculated the impact and everything. So when we are preparing a deck and presenting in CLP, like at that time, we need to show only one slide for climate impact, right? So which of this slide you will be going to pick for showing there, and which will be considered in best to put over there, like calculation or the final impact? Because we need to tell how you calculated that also, and what is the impact as well. So how are you going to represent that?
No, you just have to show the bar graph, the final impact in Climate Launchpad, and you can just say that this is my impact. So for example, the GHG emission, you just show it on a bar graph, one which says 1.46 tons of CO2, and your impact will be 0. So your net impact will be shown from the bar graph as 1.46 ton of reduction of CO2, and that's it. You can show definitely what we do encourage is that you show the sources from which you got this. So since we got all of this data from CEA, or if you're taking some ready-made data, or you found some secondary sources from which you sourced your data, you just put it on the slide for reference. That definitely you can do, but it's only in the question answer round that somebody asks you that these numbers seem impossible. How you're getting the scale of impact, then that is where you can definitely talk about how you've done these impact calculations.
Okay,
but
so
you don't need to show.
What you are basically saying is this same slide, as you mentioned right now, we can put an impact like that, and we can mention the sources below the slide, that these are the sources we have covered, got the figures. So that is enough, right?
That is enough. Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Somebody else raised their hand. Anybody else?
I guess it was Meldat Auto.
Yeah, Rakesh. Yes, please go ahead. Rakesh. No?
Yeah, Joy. No, Joy, you answered that question actually. Like, even I had the same query, whether what is that we need to put up? Should we put up a baseline information in the slide and the impact? I think you made it clear. Thanks.
Hello. Okay. Yes.
Hi,
yes.
Julie.
Hi, Natasha.
Julie, I just wanted to ask you. See, now this is per product. It's the GHG emissions calculation that has been shown. Now, if you have a service, how do we do that? Like if you are we supposed to take like 10 suppose say buildings, or how do you do that? Like if you have to show net benefit.
Yours is a green building, right? Green
Right.
building startup.
Yes.
You give green building consultancies.
Yes.
So what you can do is, I mean, if you want to show, so so another aspect over here is that you really need to understand what is the baseline. What are you comparing against? Why do you call yourself a green startup in the first place? Right.
Okay.
So if you're comparing yourself against an existing green building and you're making them greener, then you show an impact accordingly. That so I reduced 20% more carbon footprint that people might have staying in the building. Or if you're comparing it to a normal building, which is not even a green building, then your impact will be drastically different. Might be a 50%. But then you need to be able to defend why you're taking a baseline as you are. Is that your typical market? Basically, that's what we want to know.
Okay,
Who
so
are you
I
converting?
can show like per building, I can show what the impact is.
Yeah. Per building, or then the residents staying over there over a period of 1 year. How much is a reduction of footprint? That is the kind of functional unit that you can take. 1 year for one household of on an average 4 people. That's a fair enough functional unit.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Julie.
Yeah. Whoever's raised their hand, please just go ahead. Anybody?
Yes, hello, Joey.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I think we both. I'm Rakesh here. I think there's one more, two people. Yeah, do you see? Okay. So we've been also undergoing exercise through RISE, the Sweden, for this impact calculation. So I don't know, like whether the results would be the same or no, because as you mentioned earlier, there are various methods and process of calculating impact, right?
No, but if you're following a methodology, you already know your framework and you've gotten some results, then I mean, go ahead with it. This is just a framework. I'm not even talking about any methodology over here. Basically, just trying to make things easier if you don't have a framework. Yeah.
Hi, Joey.
Hi, Tejas. Yes.
So I had a quick question. With so now we're going to always compare this with the other products, right? Our product with the other products, essentially. So in that case, which data is easily available to compare? Is it going to be cradle to grave, or cradle to gate, or gate to gate? So based on that, what is available, then we can compare it just with that basis.
Yeah, but it really depends on the positive impact that you're having in either of these phases. So it might be so that you do not have a positive impact in a gate to gate. So even if the data is available for that, it's not very material for you to choose that boundary also. So,
Right. So right. I understand.
Yeah. So it really depends on that, how you choose your boundary. Because if it's not a significant change in the boundary that you've chosen, then no point.
Okay, thank you.
Joey, there's a lot of information in what you're sharing. Would the recording and the slides be available for us to later reference some of these data?
I'll make the slides available, and I think they are pretty extensive slides. So I think that'll be good. I don't think we are recording this, but we do have some previous recordings of the same webinar that I've done before. That's just
So the slides will be available, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Hello, Joey?
Yes,
This is Abhishek. What I was asking is that on what basis, if we are producing, or if we are having a vehicle on which is running on a road, on what basis we are going to calculate that impact, on the kilometer basis, or in an hour basis, on how much hour our vehicle is producing, that kind of power that I need to know.
I mean, a standard one is, I think, kilometer one. If you have some reason for choosing an hourly, I mean, if that's what your innovation is, I don't know. Can you elaborate why you want to choose per hour?
Actually, we are having a vehicle which is generating power on board. Okay, so on what basis we are? I'm just confused in that case. On an hourly basis, we have to consider that impact, or on the kilometer rating.
Yeah. I mean, this is very specific to your startup, but I would still suggest on how much of distance traveled is a easier metric to take than per hour, because per hour then
It
you'll have
would
to
be
see what kind of speed and all that also takes, So how do you calculate?
And standard. If everyone who electric vehicles startups, everyone, if we are having a same standard on a kilometer basis, then it would be good.
Exactly. So it will generally be kilometer basis, because if you take time wise, then the speed parameter is quite a big variable over there.
Okay, then we'll go to that point only. 100 kilometers. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, great. Anyone else?
Yeah, hello.
Yeah.
Hi, Jagdish. Sharad.
Hi. Yes.
June, there was a required reading before for the session, the EI project carbon footprint methodology. So
it wasn't a required one. I specifically mentioned that it's only out of interest because it was very extensive. I know it was only for some specific people who were very interested in calculations. Otherwise, it wasn't.
Now that you're going through this session, that's not required, no?
Only if you are interested and if you want to learn more about, through very extensive methodologies and all that. But if you're thinking of going into the carbon markets and all that, then definitely you should. It's not that expensive also.
Yeah. For purposes of our slide deck, we are anyway going to look for data.
Yeah. For purposes of CLP and this, I think this is enough information. You don't need to go through that.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Somebody was talking also. I couldn't quite hear.
Hello.
Yeah.
Saurabh here.
Hi.
As far as the information you provided over the mail, that all the data which is shared, right now ma'am was telling about that. So there is an interesting data about TTW, that is transfer to V. Like they have mentioned so many data on the basis of TTW basis. So what is that? Can you tell me exactly TTW? In our case, it is mentioned for a two-wheeler and a electrical vehicle. This is a TTW emission per thing. So how we are going to calculate on that basis?
Yeah. I mean, we can take this discussion a little offline because it will take up a lot of time and it's specific to your startup. But we can maybe discuss it over email or phone, because I think it is a little extensive for these purposes.
Sure, we can do that.
Right? Yeah.
During the open office hours.
Maybe, yes.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Okay, great. I mean, just looking at the time, let me go through my next example, and then maybe we can take up on more questions. Okay. So this is the next example of a startup called Water Chakra, which was in our CLP last year. The startup out of Chennai, and what they are doing is basically their innovation is a treatment unit which they fix in a urinal, and what it does is it removes nitrogen, phosphorus from the urinal, thereby treating the water at least for not for day quality or drinking water, but at least for other reusable purposes. That's their innovation. So here the functional unit that we are going to take is a treatment unit in one urinal operating for 1 year, right? If the urinal operates for 1 year, if you put a treatment unit in that, what is the impact? Scope is water and land pollutants, nitrogen and phosphorus, and indirect GHG emission reduction. Boundary, we're just going to take direct operation. So when you actually install the treatment unit in the urinal and when the urinal is used, what is the impact? And business as usual, I've written over here, not available because this is quite a new technology and there is no baseline as of now. But later, while calculating a GHG emission reduction, I've taken a water treatment plant as a baseline to compare to. Key assumptions, basically, what are the visits per day? So how much is the urinal used per day? So 190 visits per day is what we are looking at. Right, if it operates for 16 hours a day. And efficiency. So you can also, if you are a product-based startup, you can also look at the efficiency of your product, and you don't need to work at the efficiency of 100%. You can assume efficiency is to be on the safer side and have a more credible impact as well. So here I've taken 70%. Now per capita pollutant generation through urine. I'm just going to finish this example and the deck and take up questions post that. Okay, so whoever's raised your hands, just wait and I'll come to you. Total nitrogen, and this is directly taken from a paper. I've quoted the source over here. Total nitrogen produced in urine, basically that's what we're calculating over here, and total phosphorus. Pollutant generation. So basically what we saw is that how much is the urinal used, what is the amount of urine that is produced, and the amount of nitrogen and phosphorus that will be present and which can be removed by water chakras treatment unit. So that came to annual load of 153 and 13 kgs of phosphorus, and then we take a efficiency of 70% of an efficiency, right? And that's the numbers that we get basically. Now avoided GHG emissions, as I said earlier, basically, the baseline is taken as a normal wastewater treatment plant. So if they weren't treating it in the urinals, it would have generally gone to some other wastewater treatment plant. There, how much electricity does it take? How much electricity and how much GHG emissions through that will it take is generally calculated. So I won't really go into the calculations because it's too expensive, but you can go through these in the slide deck later. So total avoided CO2 emissions is 30 tons. That's what we've calculated. So here, I mean, again, you show it as a bar graph, but net benefit that you get in terms of GHG emissions, pollutants to land and water, and water use basically. So much of water is being treated. That is what it means, water use. All right, Keith. And also, I mean, never forget to report the following alongside the results. So whatever the assumptions are that you're taking, make sure that you put forth these assumptions on your slide deck. So say that, this is only for this scope and boundary, or if there are questions, then you tell them that, this is only for this scope and boundary. So don't basically hide your assumptions. I'm just going to go through this one last, only for the purposes of social impact, if you have any and you want to learn about it. So I'm going to go through it super fast so that we have some time for questions. This was a startup last year also in one of the programs that I did this impact assessments for. They were a robot cleaning device that they had formed to clean septic tanks. So to avoid the manual cleaning of septic tanks, they had made this robotic device. The scope, we are going to limit the scope only to the social benefits by using the machine. So whatever is the production process and whatever the negative environmental impacts they might be having in the production process, we are not taking those into consideration. Boundaries are direct operations, and the business as usual we are taking as the manual cleaning of septic tank. So now here the key assumptions become that one septic tank requires 4 people to clean it, for example. People suffer from diseases due to exposure of sewer gases, premature deaths. Like if 4 people are cleaning it, 2 out of 4 will literally have premature deaths, according to some articles that I've given reference to over here. So then you can calculate the social impact that you've created. So income, health parameters, drastically reduce the health impacts that you have to do manual scavenging. Although we do reduce the jobs for manual scavengers, but then they might be then going into better jobs, and we can give them better skills and all that. A number of lives saved. There are a number of methodologies to calculate this value of statistical life and all, but there are various ethical concerns for valuing life like this. Negative impact, it will loss of jobs, not this, and yeah. Some of the benefits are definitely intangible. So if you feel that some benefit that you have is completely intangible, you have no idea how to quantify it, there are no standard methodologies, or you can't find it in any of the secondary research, feel free to just put it in 1 or 2 points as qualitative terms, and that's it. Monetization of impact is another aspect of impact assessments, which is being done by a lot of companies, or it's basically picking up now, and a lot of consultants do that as well. But in these early stages, really no need, and you can just completely ignore this even if you come across it. But there are many standards for this as well, like you calculate an SROI, which is social return on investment. But when you grow big as a company, we can talk about this, and you can hire me to do these impact monetizations. Yeah, and these are my contact details. Basically, you can email me or deck, but just don't like give a 2-liner about your startup that this is my startup and can you help me with my impact quantifications. If you've already done some impact calculations, I'd be happy to look at it, and or my team as well. So we can give you some support over email, but like don't just expect us to do the calculations for you. So thank you. That was my presentation, and it's completely open to question answers for the next 15 minutes that we have.
Joy, in that urinal example, you showed carbon dioxide emissions reduced. And it was something, a very, very specific number, that so many kgs of, what was it, nitrogen or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So what is the source for this data? Where is this kind of data available?
These kinds, I mean, these are all basically any government website. So these kind of data, I don't even remember where I took this data, but it was a meta-analysis of wastewater treatment plants in India. Basically, there was some report which spoke about all the treatment plants and how much treatment plants take up electricity and what is the GHG emission to reduce nitrogen and phosphorus, because that's the main focus in the wastewater treatment plants, to reduce nitrogen and phosphorus.
Do you recommend some kind of website or source that we go to that has already calculated GHG greenhouse gas emissions for I don't know, some use cases that we could begin with?
So I mean, there are a lot of if you talk in terms of carbon, then there are a lot of online tools for carbon calculations. If you even just type on Google, you'll get there's a tool by World Wildlife Fund. There's a tool by UN, or World Bank has a tool as well. Like I was saying, there's this tool called Crane tool. So there are many tools available where you can directly have these carbon calculations. For other kinds of calculations, it's a little tougher. So maybe more of secondary research would help you better.
So in these tools, we can type in our assumptions and put some assumed numbers, and they would give us.
So generally what they'll ask is your assumptions that you're taking, what is the innovation, what is the assumption, baseline, and the market analysis that you have. So these are the kind of assumptions that they'll ask, and they'll calculate for you then.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
Yeah. Ma'am, I had a question. You showed us a number of parameters which you compared in order to determine the net impact of the business. So in case of our presentation, will we have to put forward all of these, or we can just compare one? And what is advisable? Because we have to put only one slide in the final pitch deck. So what are we supposed to put forward?
So, I mean, as I said, you can just choose your one significant impact, and that's what you put forward. So, I mean, very bluntly, just pick one which you feel has the highest rate of change that you're bringing forth from your innovation, and you can just put that as a bar chart. as compared to some scenario.
Ma'am, any additional data that I should be putting on the slide?
No, nothing. Except for your references. You put your references.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome. Maybe I should actually show what the slide
Hello.
looks like. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, Joy, about the life cycle assessment, I want to ask, like, my material is eco-friendly material, but I want to calculate the life cycle of that material. So is there any tool or website or like where I can do the free life cycle assessment of my material? And second, as you were talking about the carbon emission, so can you please repeat what tools you were, I can't understand, what tools you were telling about to calculate the carbon emission of a material? Can you please tell these things?
Yeah. So let me just put some of the tools over here and you can go check them out. Or maybe I can mail also everybody a list of tools online. Maybe that's better. I'll email everybody a list of tools. But I mean, as of now, out of top of my head, there's World Wildlife Fund tool. There is a crane tool. These are the two tools which are quite okay to solve. But even for this, you need some assumptions, some data collected, and all of that. So you need to feed that in, and you'll get a then they'll process the impact. That's how
So
it
is
works.
okay. So these are for carbon emission, right?
Yeah, carbon emissions. Yes.
And for
Crane tool, I think has more. It also has, I think, some other impacts also. Yeah. Hello?
Okay, and for life cycle assessment, do we have some tools to assess life
Oh
cycle?
yeah. So I mean, see, these tools are expensive if you talk about a life cycle assessment. So there are two main softwares which are used for this. One is Gabi software. I'll maybe put it on chat if you're not familiar with it.
Okay.
So there's Gabi and there's SEMA Pro.
These are paid or free tools?
These are paid as far as I know. CA Pro
Okay.
it says. But there might be some free versions for some to use. I'm not so sure. Check. Even when I worked as a consultant, we bought the paid versions of these. Not really sure. But these are the main ones, Gabi and CFO. If there are others which are free, I don't know. But if I come across, I'll just do a quick search and I can come back to you. And maybe mail these all of these tools compilations to everybody.
Okay, Julie. Thank you.
Anyone else? I'm just going to show what the CLP one looks like because I think everybody has questions on that. Yeah. So this is what we're looking at, the climate impact slide. So maybe this would give a better example. So this is one company which is producing a less energy intensive herbicide manufacturing process. So they have some innovation that they developed which makes a herbicide manufacturing process less energy intensive. So if you look at this slide, what it says is that with their innovation, they have only 2.9 kg CO2 per hectare as the CO2 emissions, and the current that is there in the market right now, the current PAU is 158 kg CO2 per hectare, right? So they are saving 129.1 kg CO2 per hectare. This is their net benefit that they are having from their innovation. Right, so this is the way that you show it on a bar graph, what we discussed right now. So you put it on the bar graph, the BAU scenario, the business as usual scenario, and your innovation. Right, if it's 0 over here, then it's 0. So this is your net. Then 158 becomes your net benefit, positive benefit that you have. And then when you work out your beachhead numbers and how many people will use this and what your beachhead market looks like, then you just multiply this by your beachhead market, and that's your total impact that you will have in your chosen beachhead market for 1 to 3 years. But basically this number doesn't, it's not that important as this part, but you need this after you've done your market calculations. Right? I hope that's clearer from a CLP point of view. Any more questions? Yeah, whoever's raising hand, please go ahead.
This slide that you're showing us now, it's there in the manual also, no? That was shared earlier, or
the workbook, yes, CLP workbook.
In the workbook.
It's there. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, someone is saying they're not able to unmute. Sumita, are you still there? You're not able to unmute.
Hello. Am I audible, Julie?
Yeah, you're audible. Yeah.
So
Sumita.
we
Hi.
had a doubt. We had a doubt that the social benefit and the environmental benefit that we have. So we need to choose only one out of those, or can we do both of them if we find them to be equally important for the slide?
So for the purposes of CLP, unfortunately, you do have to show environmental impact for sure. So that's what you have to put on the bar graph.
Okay.
Social impact, if you have, which is equally important, if you feel, you can put it as 1 or 2 points as qualitative, or as I was saying, you can build it up in your narrative. So you can talk about it in your title slide or the founder's dream.
Okay. So we will do that. This was our doubt. Thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome. Great.
Hello, hi Joy.
Hi. Yes.
Actually, just wanted to ask that what kind of impact we do have. Actually, we are promoting waste segregation at shows. Then we provide incentives to the staff or housekeeping staff in a hotel. Then we send it to upcyclers. For upcycling process, we form a group of some underprivileged women. So we are providing them the employment training, and we also selling their product. So which impact we should focus?
Yeah, yours is quite a long business model, I remember, with various things that you do. Maybe it's a very particular case and we can take it up offline. So maybe we can have a one-on-one discussion on this. But there are, waste management itself is quite a big impact sector. And you can talk about, that and since you're working with hotels, right, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of food wastage and methane emissions, which are a direct impact reduction that you're causing. So I mean, that's a large enough impact, but you're also doing some upcycling and reducing this waste and all that. So that also is another.
So one more thing is that we are incentivizing the waste segregation process. So we are providing some incentives to the whole
I know.
staff.
Yeah. Correct. I remember. So as I said, yours is quite a extensive, long supply chain. I mean, long business model, so to speak, with various revenue chains. And, so one very significant one is definitely methane, since you're focused on the RECA industry. Anything else? I mean, we can talk one-on-one on this. So I mean, definitely you have other impacts from your upcycling business also. Because you're reducing that amount of waste going into landfill.
Yeah.
So we can talk about that.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, great. So if no one else, anybody else have any doubts? I mean, see, I know that for people who are not initiated into this and have not thought about impact assessments before, or this is very new, there's a whole lot of information together. So if you do get a chance to think about it, if you have doubts, feel free to just email. And if you want some help, email to my email ID. That's fine. Also, we can talk more about it in the open office hours. Right? Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending. And see you all. Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank
you. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Okay, Sachin, I'm leaving, okay?
Yeah.
I have to go to the EIT training.
Okay.
Okay, bye.